When we first got married in 2014, we had no idea that we would get pregnant so early, and absolutely no idea of the events that would come after.
I was 22 weeks pregnant when I started having a lot of severe complications. I was diagnosed with a very rare syndrome called HELP syndrome that affects less than 1% of females.
Due to Katie's condition, the doctors had to perform an emergent C-section, and I was away at the time at Air Force Base in Ohio, and I spoke with my commanding officer, and he granted me some emergency leave, and I flew back down to Tampa as quickly as I could. Margaret Mae was born at 24 weeks, weighing just under 1 pound. When the neonatologist came and spoke to us, he was very clear and said that her chances of survival were 50-50 with leaving the hospital.
So obviously hearing those words were scary, and we didn't know what to expect. Giving birth to her that day was probably the scariest day of our lives.
And I mean, there were so many hard parts. During the C-section, obviously, anyone who's had one, you're awake. And to have instead of being 5 or 6 people in the room, there's 20 people in the room. There's a whole team for Margaret, and to listen to that team intubating your child and putting a tube in her throat to breathe, and that's just not how you pictured the birth of your child going. And it's just you're living through a real nightmare.
Her first couple days in the NICU were very surreal and actually okay. And then after that is when more of an emotional roller coaster took place, and one day was better than the other and one day was not very good at all.
In those first few days, it's like a bad dream. That stuff doesn't happen to you, it happens to someone else that you know. But when it is happening to you, you just have to keep moving forward and keep living your life and get up every day and go see her and go to the NICU. And it was a very surreal experience. 6 days after Margaret was born, I had to report back to my base in Ohio, and for the next 6.5 weeks, I was gone, and it was just Katie in the NICU.
And in the beginning, when Margaret was in the NICU, it was really hard to see her in her isolette that she was in, because all I kept thinking was she needs to be in my womb, in my belly. When Margaret Mae was about 12 days old, it was my first time ever being able to hold Margaret. So you can imagine it was such a powerful moment, and I was able to FaceTime Sean. He was there for that, and it was just probably one of the most special days that I'll never forget. Margaret Mae battled about 4 months, a little over 4 months in the NICU, totaling 134 days. I'll never forget the day that we took her home for the first time. We were able to actually take Margaret off of all of her monitors and all of her cords, and I feel that was a big moment for us as a family, because we actually held our daughter for the first time and took her out of her NICU room.
Yeah, the whole time she was in the NICU, she was hooked up to these machines, and for the first time ever on our last day there, we were able to walk out of her room with her. And then when we actually left the hospital, she'd been alive for almost 5 months, and she'd never felt the sun on her face, never felt the wind in her little hair, but so it was a really powerful moment to take her outside and start our way home.
Through all of this, I've learned that life is a miracle, and we've been gifted with our own miracle of having Margaret Mae.
When Margaret Mae watches this video, she'll hear the stories about her birth and the stay, and she's kind of the star of the show, but I want her to focus on her mother. I learned things about my wife that I didn't know when we even got married. Everyone that knows Katie knows she's so sweet and compassionate, but what they don't know is how strong and fierce you can be, and a defender of your family, and do what needs to be done to see us all through. So I want Margaret Mae to know that she's lucky because Katie's her mom.
And you too.